Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my Cardfight Vanguard Overdress Diablos Bruce deck profile for Post: A Brush with the Legends. With the latest Cardfight Vanguard booster set, we were given more support to make the immensely powerful Bruce deck even more powerful. This deck focuses on Final Rush, a skill that starts at the beginning of the ride phase, in which units are considered in Final Rush. So very interesting play that basically takes use of your main go-to unit, Diablos Violence Bruce, and with the new support, it just adds to that play style, whether it be the new units or the new normal orders we got. This deck is immensely powerful, and just how many attacks you can get off in one attack step altogether. So big thanks to my buddy Jim for letting me borrow his Bruce deck for the deck profile. So let's go ahead and get started. So for the ride deck, not much has changed for the actual ride deck. Our starter is still Diablos Innocent Matt. When this unit is rode upon, if you went second, draw a card, with the grade 1 being Diablos Bad Steve. When it's placed on Vanguard, choose a card from your soul, call it to the back row center, and soul charge 1. And if you are in Final Rush on rearguard, this unit gets plus 5,000 power. So Bad Steve is the only copy you run in the deck, so you really don't use the rearguard skill as often, but the soul charge is definitely needed for the build-up for Violence Bruce, and the same goes for our grade 2, Diablos Anger Richard. When this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, put a rearguard into your soul and draw a card. So the rearguard you put is normally your rearguard Matt that you'll call out from the soul using Steve, and then just being able to gain a draw of a card. It's just more consistency making up for that rearguard you placed into the soul, with our main go-to grade 3 being Diablos Violence Bruce. And this is the one that initiates Final Rush at the start of the ride phase, and we want to run the additional 3 copies of this card in the actual main deck for the pressure of the Persona ride, along with the fact that when you ride on top of this copy, you're building up the soul in this card, because you need 5 in soul for when this unit attacks. If you were in Final Rush, you soul blast 5 and stand all of your front row rear guards. So with the Persona ride, you can hit some pretty powerful numbers, but this is also just for that pressure to be able to attack 5 times in one turn. You'll attack with the rear guards first, then Bruce, then restand the other 2 rear guards, and then attack again with those cards. And like I said, big numbers, big soul buildup is what this deck is all about. With the other backup grade 3 still being the Upward Acrobat Marjorie on rear guard once per turn when this unit attacks if you are in Final Rush. Put one of your rear guards into your soul, draw a card, soul charge 1, and this unit gets plus 10,000 until end of turn. So the plus 10 stacked on top of the Persona ride is very scary at 33,000 power. Your opponent will need to guard with, at most, the 2 15k shield critical or front trigger or heel trigger to block this attack. And even then, if you restand again with Marjorie, it gets the plus 10,000 until end of turn. So when it restands again, and with the Persona ride, you'll still have that 33,000 power, or even more if you get a trigger unit and give the power to this card. And that is it for the grade 3s. For the grade 2s, running 4 of the new Diablos Jetbacker Leonard. If you are in Final Rush, this unit gets plus 5,000 power, and when this unit will attack, it battles all of your opponent's units in that column. So with this card, very strong for that power pressure, with this card being able to attack all those units in that column. But also when this unit attack hits, you soul charge 1, and if your opponent's if your Vanguard is Diablos Violence Bruce, choose up to 1 card from your soul and call it to an open rear guard. This can give you additional rear guards because hand consistency is definitely important with this deck, so you want those numbers to be able to use against your opponent. And also you do build up soul with the soul charge, so it's not like you're losing out in the soul potentially with Diablos Bruce as your Vanguard. For the soul blast, you're just calling out what you basically would have soul charged with Leonard, and just having different options on what you call out with the soul buildup also. With the last spot for the grade 2s going to Diablos Boys Eden. This is more for pressure against your opponent. On rearguard, if you are in Final Rush, this unit gets plus 5,000 power. And then stand this unit, when it stands, it gets a critical plus 1. So with this card and its second skill, when this unit attack hits, counter plus 1, choose one of your opponent's rearguards to retire it. It doesn't even have to hit the Vanguard. I've dropped the numbers of Eden just for the fact that Leonard has immense pressure with the column attack, and with the option to call out cards like Eden, if it's in the soul, built up by your soul charge, back onto the field for you to reuse. But the additional critical pressure and the plus 5 means with the Persona ride, this card can hit for 25,000, but we have other cards in the deck that can also build up this unit's power altogether. That's it for the grade 2s. Moving on now to the grade 1s. Running 3 of the Protobulb Dragon on rearguard when this unit attack or boosts. If you're in Final Rush, +1. Put another rearguard into your soul and choose a card from your soul and put it into your hand. So after the unit attacks, this is a good way to get back Sentinels into your hand to help on the turn that your opponent will be taking right after yours to guard with those Sentinels against your opponent's bigger attacks and making up for rearguards that really wouldn't put up much of a defense against your opponent altogether than more that a Sentinel would have for that. And you don't really use your Counterblast for much else aside from Eden and also for some of the additional setup with some of the cards coming up. So having the Counterblast go to Protobulb Dragon just makes up for that consistency so you have better cards to guard within your hand, like I said. For some of the lower numbers for the grade 1s, also running 2 of the Diablos Madonna Mabel on rearguard when this unit boosts to Vanguard. If you're in Final Rush, +1. Choose one of your Vanguards and it gets triple drive until end of turn. So it doesn't give drive +1, it just gives you triple drive. Being able to drive check those 3 cards just adds to the pressure of Bruce. You have the 5 attacks to begin with, but also being able to get 3 drive checks will not only build up your hand for defense, but give you the chance to hit more triggers to use against your opponent for those situations. Better chance of getting the over trigger, the criticals, you name it. This card just adds to that pressure and is definitely one that your opponent will try to get rid of, having that option for all this additional drive checking against your opponent. And for some other numbers for the grade 1s, I also run 2 Monitoring Gear Dober on rear at the end of the battle. This unit boosted. If you are in Final Rush, put this unit into your soul. Choose one of your units and it gets +10,000 to end of turn. So it's end of turn. So even with this card being the first go-to boost, it can provide the first boost for the attack. And then putting it into the soul can help build up for Bruce, but also give you the +10 to another rear guard, including cards like Marjorie. Being able to put this card at 43,000 alone with its own skill. The option for the Persona Ride just gives you more and more pressure with those cards. Putting into the soul is a big part of it, though. You want to have this card be essential for building up that 5-card soul when some of your other cards don't make the cut. But the last for the actual setup for your soul for Final Rush is 2 Acrobat Presenter on rear when this unit attacker boosts. If your Vanguard is Diablos Violence Bruce, Soul Charge 1, and if you're in Final Rush, Soul Charge 1. So the Soul Charge 2 with this card could basically be enough you need to hit those numbers for Final Rush, along with some of the other cards that can provide power. This one just provides the Soul, so that's why I've divided the numbers up for the grade 1s in the deck, because there could be specific situations in which you need these particular grade 1s, but for more attack pressure against your opponent, where those ones will definitely come in handy. The last of the grade 1 positions is taken up by the Recusal Hate Dragon, once again just being the Sentinel, where if you have the 2 in hand and no other cards and you guard with the 1, as long as you have the 1 card in hand, you don't have to pay the discard cost, so you can block the attack against your opponent Vanguard, and if they get an over trigger and give all the effects to rearguard since the Vanguard's not hitting, you have that final Sentinel to guard against your opponent with and don't even have to pay the discard cost. The only way to really block against the 100 million power that your opponent's Vanguard or rearguard will be. That's it for the grade 1s. As for the normal orders, I'm running 3 of the Hellblast Full Dive. You play this card with a Counterblast. You draw a card, choose a card from your hand, call it to rear. Then if you're in Final Rush, all your front row get +10 until end of turn. This, just on top of all the other cards, can potentially get your Vanguard and everything up +20,000 power. Marjorie, with all the other power boosts we spoke of before, being able to hit even greater numbers, can be an attack that your opponent just can't block. They can try and block with once, but after it restands again, that's just another attack to hit against your opponent. For the trigger lineup, we're running a 7-8 critical for the total number. So 4 of the Diablos Girls Mai and 4 of the Flinty Slasher. Critical pressure is just very, very important in the deck, because with these pressure and the triple drive we can get with Mabel, you can hit some pretty big numbers for your units, and even if the Vanguard doesn't hit, being able to provide this card to a rear guard that just restood that can hit means that you have a better guarantee to hit those numbers against your opponent. And also running 3, instead of the front, we're going for the draw trigger. Now you definitely invest a lot with plays in this deck, so you need hand consistency, and that's where the draw trigger comes in over the actual front trigger. You hit plenty of good enough numbers for your front row with the normal order and everything else in this deck, but it definitely does need some draw power for even just the damage checks, so you can have some cards in your hand to survive against your opponent, with the last being the heal trigger and the Diablos Girls Ariana, the football player cheerleader choice for the Spike Brother like deck, being Bruce. And lastly, the over trigger is the Hades Dragon and Deity of Resentment, with this one having the early game pressure of plus 10,000 extra critical to the Vanguard when you drive check this card. Otherwise, it's just the normal 100 million to your Vanguard, giving you the extra draw for removing this card from the damage zone. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Once again, big thanks to my buddy Jim for letting me borrow the Bruce deck for the deck profile. And like I said, it's definitely one of the strongest decks in the format. That's what you get for working with Donji, one of the main characters from Overdress, and also considered one of the strongest characters in the actual anime. But as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Qualia out.